Welcome back to another podcast episode. I'm your host, Daryl Wingfield, and I was just reading about something interesting not too long ago, and it was talking about, uh, I was learning about cultural globalization. Globalization. I gotta say that freaking slow, but yeah, it was very interesting, and pretty much, um, cultural globalization is like the interconnection of pretty much everything now from I guess a cultural standpoint. It was like economic globalization and political globalization as well. But I was looking at the cultural globalization, and it's an interesting time that we're living in. Never was a time in history where the whole entire world can instantly message each other and communicate with each other. You had things back in the day like the what is it? The Silk Road with like China and India where those like trade routes where they would trade like goods, spices, animals, jewelry, things that they didn't commonly see in their land and wasn't traded amongst them and their people. But that started opening up literally the whole entire world for both sides. This is like one small little thing. And when one of the first people started, sailing Atlantic Sea, Atlantic Ocean, dudes like I don't know, like the douchebag Christopher Columbus, who pretty much was, I guess, one of the early guys behind the whole slave trade kind of a thing, which also started, opening up the world even more as well. And you have this weird time period where people are exchanging information, are exchanging gifts, are exchanging valuable things amongst each other. And with doing that, there's something that happens, and it's it's a phenomenon right now, because we're literally living through it. But it opens up the door to so many possibilities. You know, like it's something to see for me personally. It's really really crazy to see that um, my podcast was listened to in like places like Russia, of course, Germany, Japan, Kenya, Canada, Mexico, and other states in this country, America. And for me, I don't know. When I first started doing this, it was something where it was like it felt like I was talking literally to myself, but I had to pretend in my head that that I was talking to other people, and that was very very uncomfortable to do at first. If you guys want to check out the very first Purpose Served podcast, go ahead and look at, how cringe I was. I'm still cringe, but yeah, that was like pretty cringe. And through these things like having a podcast, which is something that I talked about previously, it's just that we have the opportunity to play along with this whole like this dance of cultural globalization, and you have the power and you have the opportunity at this very moment to utilize the things around you to get your message out there, to start building on what you're trying to build on, and meet different people. Like now is like the time. Don't even miss out on it. And to think that generations before this point, you know, there's no way in hell that anybody could have predicted any of this. Computers, cameras, laptops, phones, taking pictures, videos. Like people probably like 300 years ago, if you would have took this technology to like I don't know, had this in like Boston, during the Salem witch trials, you would have been burnt at the stake and stoned to death. Uh, People would have looked at you probably like you're demonic because it was something that's outside their realm of understanding. And even if you probably tried to describe it to them, you're still done for. They'll probably think that you were possessed by Satan himself. You feel me? And yeah, you definitely will get burnt by the stake. That kind of drifted off, but you guys had to start capitalizing on these opportunities, and you never know the efforts that you can apply for yourself that's going to build a better tomorrow and a better future for the people that's coming after you. And those of you that's tuned in to this podcast, it's very important that you understand, I guess, an aspect that's bigger than yourself. And constantly, I guess for me, looking at the pattern of cultural globalization is just that people take a liking to other things that they don't normally see. Like, for example, I don't personally listen to K-pop, but that's like I guess, a big deal in the states. Like people here listen to it, and it originates from Korea, which pop music originated from here. So that inspired a whole subgenre of music that was inspired by something that was originally, I guess, created here with sources and elements that came from other genres of music. But the fact that from the United States to Korea, you can simply, listen to artists and get exposure to different talents and different people that's living in places that you most likely won't ever travel to a day in your life. But that doesn't mean that it's still not out there, and that doesn't mean that you can't make a difference towards the life around you and this planet in itself. We have we have an abundance of power at our disposal that I feel as though due to people not recognize it, it goes to the wayside and it gets wasted, you know. And that's a whole lot of, to me, collective potential that can be added to things and people that, like this is how I look at it with this podcast. Somebody could listen to this podcast and it inspires them to go create something that, that I never know, that it even inspired this person to do this thing or create this thing. And it's in a way where that also fueled this podcast and fueled the connections that I made with people through this podcast, And just going back earlier today for a little bit, not literally not too long ago, right before this podcast, I had my meditation class with Grace. We do the practices, every Tuesday at 6 o'clock, who was previously on this podcast. I probably said that already. But we was dealing with the anger. And pretty much I was talking to her about me starting to develop this mindset now that I'm really about to full-fledged, go at it with basketball and practicing like a madman again, It's a lot of things that I put to the wayside to focus on purpose served and the important aspects of that, and feeling like I can't, juggle two things at once. But, when I play basketball, it's tapping in to an aggressive side of myself that uh, through doing this podcast and, meeting and talking to other people and understanding other people outside the realm of, sports and just simply talking about life, it takes me out of that edgy competitor, mind state that I'm about to put myself back into slowly but surely. And help me, she helped me understand something. She helped me understand something. And if you think about you being angry. Go back to situations when you were mad. She made a valid point, and she said that what you're the things that made that feeling of anger wasn't anger, but it was elements combined to make you feel that, and that was like a response to you rejecting some form of, I guess, your experience or reality, you know, and different things like, embarrassment, fear, like all of these things like lead to that feeling of anger, which when certain elements are combined of that is going to make you angry and respond aggressively. And once I became like aware of that, we do this thing where we fill out exactly what that feeling is, and then after that, um, become aware of it and become aware of the elements of those things. And crazy enough, that's the kind of that's how I go through a lot of processes that I go through. I first um, understand, recognize what it is, and then try to understand the key components of what makes this thing this thing. Because when you separate them, it's oftentimes not exactly that thing, And it's two examples that I'm gonna bring up, and it's gonna be first of podcasts and of course basketball. The first one is simply the aspect of having a podcast. When you break the elements of having a podcast down, it's no longer a podcast when you say, I need something to record my voice, or I need something to record my face, and I need something to upload what I record with my voice. And when you put those combinations of things together, that's what make it a podcast. That's like, I guess, a more lighter side to the elements when talking about dealing with anger. And basketball, that was something like for me when I first started playing this game. It was so much I wanted to do at one given moment, and basketball wasn't basketball anymore, and I had to break things down in order to put things together. Like the story that's of legend here is me getting cut. It's tough. When I was in high school, I was a late bloomer. I started playing under the whistle when I was 16 years old. And what I mean by under the whistle is playing with referees. There's referees in the game, so it's not, going to like outside playing with your friends or playing at the Y. So when I first started playing under the whistle, I didn't understand why I couldn't score like I was playing 3-on-3 with my friends and stuff like that. I didn't understand why it was so hard to make a shot, why I was getting scored on. It was like so much happening at once, but it's just this one element of basketball. And through these things, I already had a natural tendency to be angry and aggressive. So this fueled that anger and aggressiveness. And um, there's this one instance. I don't know if I ever told this story. I was 16 years old. I had literally just got cut from my sophomore year team. This is like in, I say, January of my sophomore year of high school. But I'm playing for this church league, and we all had the right letters about all of the other teammates, and the what we think they should improve on and what they can get better with, and what role I think that we can provide for the team. Some BS like that, and I wasn't investing in that. That season, I barely was playing. I'm getting like 2 points a game, 6 points here, four. nothing crazy. I think the most points I scored that season was 8 points. I think I had two threes and a layup. But um, when we at halftime, I remember the coach saying that if you didn't write a letter for the team, you're not playing. And I was literally the only person. So by halftime, the people that didn't write the letter was like writing it, and I remember a couple of people saying like, "Daryl, just write the letter," and I'm like, "Yo, I'm not writing like anything. Nobody better not tell me like I'm writing anything and I'm playing, you know." And I think I had to pay for that season. Well, not me. My mom actually paid for it, but I remember after that, I was sitting there and I went up to him because I was on the bench for a little bit. It's the third quarter. I walked up to them and I was like, "Put me in the game." And he said, "I'm not putting you in the game. You didn't write the letter." So I'm like, "If you're not putting me in the game, give me my money back." And he said that I ain't giving you your money back or nothing. So I literally got in his face, and I was like, "You better give me my money back, or it's going to be a problem." And he ended up giving me back the half that I paid for. My mom paid for. It wasn't even the whole entire thing. And he told me to get out the gym. And I was like, "Okay, I don't care. I wasn't playing anyway, you know." And I remember that walk home. It was freezing cold, and it was very similar to the walk that I had, that a couple of months previous to that moment of when I got cut from the team. I always found myself walking um, around this time, and when I was like reflecting on that moment, the more I was thinking about it, the angrier I was getting. And then eventually I ended up going home and I told my mom about it. And I thought that she was going to side with me. And she actually didn't. She was pretty upset about what I did. And that was typically her response to a lot of things that I did, because of the I often, reacted out of anger. I was always angry and I responded. So, and fast forward, crazy enough, 2 years later, I got put in literally the same exact situation. I got cut my senior year for some odd reason. I still don't know to this day. He told me I was uncoachable, but I don't know. I quit that summer, the team. Um, that's another story for another day, I guess. But a couple of months later, I found myself in the same exact situation, playing for the same exact coach. And this time around, I was a fairly confident basketball player. I had proved myself uh, to others around me, but most importantly to myself, that I was capable with playing on that level, and not only that, being better than people on that level. That was definitely one of my sources of motivation. I was I was geared towards being better than other people because, like, of course, like I told you guys that uh people didn't believe in me, and my whole thing was literally to prove them wrong. And that's the kind of work ethic I carried with me when I went about practicing and going into games. It was very, like, I had a chip on my shoulder, and anger was attributed to that, and it allowed me to respond aggressively on the court. So when opportunities wasn't given to me, I was able to make my own way and force my own situation, and force my own fate upon myself, without being timid and scared. And that carried over through time, but in high school these was the early opportunities. And that season with that same coach, is just that, that was one of the first coaches who, it was very, I guess, I don't it was insignificant to him probably, but it was a huge deal. But that coach, um, blessed me with the the confidence and opportunity to display my confidence and express my confidence and show what I was made of. And it, like like I said, probably was insignificant to him, but that was very very important for me, and it was a very vital point in my life. You know, it was my senior year, and um, that felt like that was like my last moment, and honestly, like one of the very few moments that I got to play in high school, and it didn't really mean much. Like the competition, I was playing against dudes that necessarily didn't play basketball, competitively, but for the fun of it, and also other kids that got cut from their team and was in the same situation, for me, to be quite honest. But through this, I was able to put my scoring on display and be able to average like 20 points for like a season. And at the time, that was like a huge deal for me, because if you guys go back and like listen to my story and everything, in fact, the description is in down below. If you want to see my basketball journey for what it actually was, click the journey, and that's pretty much talking about how I started pre reserved and my basketball career and what led to me playing overseas and other places. But all in all, these situations progressively, moving forward, you know, fueled my aggressiveness and my anger, but I learned how to channel it in a way where I can direct it towards something. But also at this very moment, through Greece, it's one of those things where I can take a step back and observe it and be aware of it for what it is. So when it arises again, I kind of know what's going on. I got those elements around. And through this podcast, um, let me give an overview of the point that I was gonna make. Which is like through basketball and during that time period, I learned how to break my game down at the very at the rudiment level of how to pick my spots and score. Practice on moves that I'm not just going in the game and just doing anything and playing basketball, but by breaking down, shooting free throws, and when I'm tired, and shooting wide open jumpers and making them shooting off the dribble, like these different things that definitely attributed in the future towards my growth and development to be able to really get good at playing basketball. Oftentimes, if you want to get good at something, you got to break it down into different elements and components to be able to put it together. Function, huge thing, that the concept that I always talk about. Literally, you wouldn't be able to read and write if you did not know, the different alphabets and the simple arrangement of those alphabets that make words and sentences that allows you to communicate. But we are living in an age where I was able to find someone like Grace to help me practice mindfulness, which has definitely been helping me communicate better and understand what I'm going through better, and also help me understand what you guys are going through better, and the people that surround me too. That through these channels, such as social media, text messages, phone calls, like this stuff is fairly new to us as human beings. 3,000 years ago, this was not a thing. This is not a thing. People were like building pyramids in Egypt without even knowing that there was like, think about how crazy this is. Think about people in Egypt had no clue that a land like America and Canada and Mexico or Australia was out there. Those places was there, whether it was to their awareness or not. And they got a limited perspective on honestly their life, and their technology was limited, their communication was limited, their transportation was limited due to the fact of them not knowing what was going on outside of, the, but their perspective was very limited due to the fact of the resources and the tools and the technology that was around them. It was very, very restricted. And it not only goes for them, but think about everybody that was living on this planet 3,000 years ago that was living their life just as the Egyptians was when going about building these great monuments and stuff like that, and this crazy architecture, which is kind of crazy. Like not even a slice, like a thin like sheet of paper can fit in the crevices of like the Great Pyramids, and like that, the science and technology and whatever, it was so freaking precise. It's very, very interesting to like, I guess, learn about. It's crazy. Without them having lacking the resources that we have now, it's like, what were they using to help them do that? Was it better than some of the stuff? Well, it can't be. That's very subjective for me to say that. But all in all, like I said, we have access to so much information. People are constantly putting stuff out there to teach other people, asking for help with projects and other things. Like people, you know, you can find jobs online. It's so many things that if you use the stuff that we have like the right way, you you will be limitless. You already are limitless, but it takes you recognizing that first, and of course it takes a great deal of confidence. But through these same elements of through cultural globalization, it's just that you can recognize by watching other people, such as me, literally me, of me constantly telling you guys, the ups and downs that I, experience for myself to better, help any other people that's going through similar things or find this relatable, you know? And I don't know how that's going to help the people that's listening and you guys that's showing support constantly, but it feels like it's something that I need to do. And if you do have that feeling, ask yourself what's holding you back from pursuing whatever it is that's trying to get you to go there, and be aware to it. But don't let it stop you. And just like, me talking about the mindfulness practice that I had earlier with Grace, break down those elements to see what they are and see them for um what it is, and move accordingly. Move accordingly. Don't sit still. Don't constantly ponder. Don't constantly think. It's some dude named Seth Godin, and I was listening to him on this guy's show called Behind the Brand, and he was talking about the practice, and it's similar to the concept that I talk about on this podcast with the art of just showing up and doing the work, and sometimes you never really know what's to come out of the certain things that you do, but it's important that you simply do it. Don't think about it. Don't hold off to it. Don't put it towards the future or tomorrow, because you don't know if you even have that tomorrow. And that's the God honest truth. We're not blessed with an infinite timeline. That that shit ends, you know, realistically within 100 years. And 100 years is not that long of a time. And for me personally, just thinking about something that I constantly think about is literally, I talk about it on this podcast, fairly touched on it earlier in this podcast. It's just 100 years ago, in this country, for my people, as black people, it was very, very different than what it currently is now. You know, it's almost night and day. And I'm granted with opportunities that a lot of my predecessors and the people that came before me literally would die for. They would choose death for, and they would give anything for their kids to have that opportunity. But as time goes on, within that span of 100 years, which, like, 3, 4 generations can start. And from the very start of that first generation all the way up to the fourth generation, a lot of things change, you know. And we're in the midst of that right now. Seize the moment, man. Take advantage of the opportunity. And I'm going to constantly say these things when I want my voice to be in your head when you you get presented with the opportunity, or you look at things, you kind of hesitant towards it. I want that feeling of like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go towards it. I'm not even gonna think about it. Something in me just made me just do it. That's what I want for you guys, and it's gonna be rewarding after the fact. And when I mean after the fact, it's gonna be a delay on when you receive that gratification that this actually works. And I'm really big on processes and the maturation of you taking the right actions every single day. And through these channels of YouTube, Google, the internet, you can find a solid foundation for yourself and apply it and learn from others, connect with others, ask others for help. And like I said, people are looking for it as well through these avenues. It's just your perspective and how you simply see it. And speaking of the practice, this is like day two of me randomly saying yesterday that I was gonna do a couple of podcasts straight. Do for me feeling like I owe it to you guys. Thanks for hearing me ramble for 30 plus minutes. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that for anybody that's listening, that this is helpful. This shit comes across as something that you needed to hear. And in the future, we're gonna have some great podcast episodes with I got confirmed some good news. We're gonna have a very awesome guest on soon that was previously on here. But to everybody that's listening, to anybody that's watching, serve your purpose. You know, treat the purpose as if it's the goal, and treat the service as if it's the action. You know, take action towards your goal. Serve your purpose. Love you guys, and I'm out. And last but not least, deuces. Gotta love it.